Well, today we continue on with our 12 powers. The 12 powers are the gifts that we came into this life with. We have access to these 12 powers every day. We're learning to work with them, but they are always, always with us. Now, the better we get at utilizing our 12 powers, the easier it is for us to move into that centered self that we are, the easier it is to access our Christ consciousness. And then we're giving our very best out into the world. The more that we practice these 12 powers, the more resilience we have, the more we become a soul well lit. Now, I see the first 5 powers that we've already gone through as kind of making a pyramid. Because I'm pretty sure a pyramid has 4 sides, even though it's a triangle, right? Taylor, do that? Okay. So here we go. The pyramid, the top of the pyramid would be faith. And it is the foundational quality that teaches us to more fully understand what we're capable of doing because we have faith in what works through us, for us, as us. Now you get to the base of the pyramid, 4 corners. We have strength, which is the ability to endure the present conditions we are in that may be hard, sticky, gooey, hard conditions. The strength gets us through because we're focused on faith. We know we can do it, so we can stay the course to get to where we want to go. And then there's love, the quality of love, big cosmic love, which is how Christ loved. Christ loved by seeing God in all things, everywhere. God is the everywhere present force in all things. So this is how Christ loved. And Ernest Holmes also says about love that it is Spirit's givingness of itself. Spirit wants to express through you. God wants to express through you. Your highest good, it wants to be created. And so the power of love increases the incidence of attraction and unification. So things come together for our highest good into our life. Then we have wisdom, which is blending the knowledge from here and from here, right? Our head and our heart. And then we have the power of power, which is dominion over or mastery over our thoughts and our feelings. And as we practice mastery over our thoughts and feelings, we become empowered, right? We are empowered. And then that allows us, working with those first 5 powers, allows us to do the big work in this world, which is being the activity of God in this world, being the heart of God in this world, and the hands of God in this world. So now we move into imagination. Imagination. Charles Fillmore said, it's through the imagination that the formless takes form. Now, when I was a little kid, and maybe you thought this too when you were a little kid, it's like we used our imagination as a play toy. It was a plaything. But think about this. In our imagination, we created worlds. We created worlds when we were little kids. So we might have said things to grownups in our life. We might have said things like that. We might have had like a big vision of something. We might have imagined something really great and amazing and wanted to share it with somebody. We might have gotten a feeling about something, but probably what we heard over and over were things like, you have a very vivid imagination, or it was only your imagination, or maybe, well, that's wishful thinking. Or I think your imagination is playing tricks on you. Okay. That's what I heard when I was a little kid. And I said that to myself as an adult, right? I would say that to myself as an adult. Our imagination, if we look at it just as a play toy, that suggests then that everything in our imagination is just stuff we're making up. But our imagination is an imaging center. An imaging center. In our imagination, we create a divine blueprint for an experience. That's what we're doing. In our imagination, we create a blueprint for an experience. In our imagination, we can conceptualize something. We can try it on. The big things and the little things. If you imagined right now the room you're sitting in, maybe decide that you want to redecorate it. Now, as I'm looking around, I don't see anybody with a pumpkin colored wall, right? But imagine for a minute that your room, the walls are all painted the color of this couch I'm sitting on. Okay, imagine the walls are painted that bright orange. Well, you just created that in your imagination. And right away in your imagination, you decided whether that would work or not, right? So this is the power of our imagination. We can try things on. We have a couple of Unity members who are, one of them has already, she decided to move across the country and she did it, right? But she tried it on in her imagination first. What would it be like to move over there to the other side of the country? But we can do it with little things too. Today, when I leave, I'll probably stop and get gas. And in my head, I pictured the 2 different gas stations I usually stop at between here and my house. And I pictured which one I would stop at because it's easy to get in and out of when I'm heading west. If you decide you want to order lunch today, you might, in your head, ask the question, Mexican food or burgers? And you'll try each one on. Which sounds better? We do this in our imagination. We do this all the time. There's a lot of activity happening in our imagination. A lot. We plan, we fantasize, and we fret. We see best possible outcomes, and we see the worst case scenarios, all in our imagination. And remember, it's through the imagination that the formless takes form, but it doesn't happen right away, luckily. You know, in spiritual circles, and I used to do this all the time, it's funny, I would think about something good I wanted to create in my life, and I would wonder where it was, right, instantaneously. But if I thought something negative, I would worry that it was going to happen right away. But things don't happen that quickly. We don't just think of something and then it happens all of a sudden in our lives. That's why our Unity friend who moved to Florida, she didn't just meditate and wake up in her new house, right? So our imagination, Ernest Holmes says that it's a creative tool, but we have to use a lot of feeling and conviction with it. Now, I have many times fantasized about moving somewhere else. But my friend who just moved, she didn't just fantasize. She actually applied a lot of feeling and conviction into it. She did some internet research. She bought a plane ticket. She flew back there. She got a realtor. She looked at houses because of the feeling and conviction that she had toward creating that. Okay. So we're pouring our creative energy into a blueprint or a design that we just created in our imagination. There is a creative force at work in our lives. It is always at work. Remember, that's the self-givingness of spirit. God is always seeking to be expressed through us, always wanting to work through us. Our imagination gives it stuff to do. It does. Imagination is the key element in the creative process as put forth by Wallace Wattles, Charles Fillmore, Ernest Holmes, right? The greats recognize imagination is very important to the creative process. Because when we want to create something with a lot of focus and intention, we have to be able to conceive of it. We have to be able to imagine it in our head. That's why one person who daydreams about moving across the country doesn't get moved until they really put a lot of energy into it. Now, the disciple of the 12 disciples, the disciple that represents imagination is Bartholomew. Now, it is said, of course, there are different Bible versions, but the Bible that Truth Unity uses says that Jesus had a vision of Bartholomew sitting under the fig tree. Where do visions happen? In our imagination. Okay, so Bartholomew represents positive thoughts and mind. The center in the body for imagination, the third eye. The third eye, its color is light blue. All right, this is the part I'm excited about. The Harry Potter character representing imagination. And I couldn't choose one because they are literally a matched set. They're the twins, Fred and George Weasley. Fred and George Weasley. You see that, Linda? There you go, Fred and George Weasley. Fred and George were known to be pranksters, and they were goofing around all the time. When Harry Potter meets them in the first book, they're teasing their mother because she cannot tell the difference between them. And she's like, okay, Fred and George. And one of them says, I'm not Fred, he's Fred. And then she's like, oh, I'm sorry. And then he goes, no, I'm kidding, I'm Fred. So they just goof around all the time. Though they are brilliant. They got decent marks in school, but they are actually brilliant. They are inventors. And they came up with some brilliant spells. They saw a need and they filled it. The students at the school wanted a good excuse to get out of classes. They invented a puking pastille, and you just ate this candy and you threw up. And so then you could get out of class and go to the nurse. They also created extendable ears so you could eavesdrop on other people's conversations. Now, wizards, when they're opposing, like wizards who are opposing each other, one of the most popular spells they use against each other is either Expelliarmus or Stupefy. That's like the two favorite spells. Fred and George Weasley they created a portable swamp to put in the way of somebody. They charmed fireworks into the shape of a dragon, and that dragon chased one of the minor villains right out of Hogwarts. They thought out of the box. Now, they left Hogwarts before they graduated, and they opened up Weasley Wizard Wheez's Joke Shop. Now, this is happening in a time when the wizarding community is under the umbrella of fear and panic. If you can imagine how crazy that might be. Fear and panic over the rise of evil. The businesses in the wizarding world are not doing very well. A lot of them are closing down. But not the Weasley's Joke Shop. Their shop is thriving because they recognize the need for people to have some fun. They said people need a laugh these days. Okay, and it was true. They were committed, and as you read through all the books, you can see how they were utilizing the 12 powers. They were not being limited by the conditions, right? They didn't think, well, we can't open a wizard shop now. Like, there's an evil wizard, that we've got to worry about. That's crazy to try to do that now. They did it anyway, and they succeeded. Everybody around them thought so much that they were just goofballs that their sister Ginny said, we've been hearing explosions out of their room for ages, but we never thought they were actually making things. We thought they just liked the noise. So everybody just thought that they were goofing around. But Fred and George were in the planning stages of creation. They had a vision. They saw a need that needed to be filled. They were focused, and they were committed. They were also great supporters of Harry Potter when they were still in high school. Usually in high school, it's the seniors' role. Well, Fred and George, they deferred to Harry because they recognized that Harry had to get something accomplished. See, this is really Harry's story, and the characters are all supporting Harry in the hero's journey. See, the 12 powers support us as we are in our own journey. So Fred and George, they were in service to Harry. They were in service to him. They supported him. They were also crazy generous. They had something called the Marauders Map. And on this map was a map of the school. They could see where all the teachers were. So they could sneak around and not get into trouble, right? Well, they gave this map to Harry because they recognized that now Harry was the one that needed this map. Now, when we have a really great imagination, we don't worry about competition. We don't worry about somebody else getting something that we think should be ours. And this is how Fred and George Weasley were. They didn't worry about giving this precious map over to Harry, right? They didn't worry that Harry would get something and that they would end up missing out. They just gave it to him because they knew it was his time to have it. The twins were just a great example that anything is possible if you've got enough nerve. That's it. Anything is possible if you have got enough nerve. Now, our Unity mystic, Eric Butterworth, he says, our task is not to set things right. It is to see them rightly. To set things right means we're staring at a problem. And, you know, when we stare at the problem, we get stuck in the problem. And there's that whole thing about the same mind that got stuck in the problem can't create a solution, right? So to see things right, what we're doing to see things right, we are looking at our happy outcome. To see things right, we're looking at the happy outcome that we have created in our imagination. Not the problem, not the thing that's keeping us from that happy outcome right now. We just look at the happy outcome. Then we become solution oriented, and that's when things become set right. We don't have to set anything right. That's done through spirit. That's done through inspiration and activity. We just have to see it rightly. Now, we actually do really good. We do better. We thrive when we are imagining what we would like to experience, when we imagine our happy outcome. We don't feel so good when we keep imagining our worst case scenarios. So we create the blueprint for our happy outcome in our imagination. We just keep focusing on what we would like to create, what we want to see happening in our life. And remember that that thing that we would like to create, it also wants to be created. So if you want to create a new experience, remember that experience wants to be created. So you receive a lot of divine support to create that experience. But it's good for us to utilize the powers of faith, strength, love, wisdom, and power with imagination. Because imagination on its own can just create pure chaos, like we all know. Okay, we all know. You see, we have, our brain is wired for negativity. Our brain is wired for negativity, which means there's a tendency to focus on scary things in our life. Now, this was actually, it's part of our biological programming, just because, like, if you look at the lives our ancestors had to lead, being chased by lions and tigers and bears, our ancestors always had to be on the lookout for stuff in the environment that could kill them or could eat them. And this program works so well that here we are today. Okay, our ancestors survived long enough to continue this line for us to be here right now. In this day and age, our brain is still wired for negativity, but it's more like, you know, don't cross the street without looking both directions. But see, we don't have to be in a state of fear to cross the street safely. We just have to be in a state of awareness. So we don't need to be afraid. I'm also going to say, don't judge yourself at all if you have gotten into any fearful states ever with our crazy news and with all the stuff that's happening. If you ended up getting afraid, don't judge yourself because you're wired for it. You're actually wired for it. Luckily, there's a divine program within us to help us manage that. We don't want to just get rid of that programming, being wired for negativity. We just want to manage that. And we manage it with the 12 powers. Okay, with faith, strength, love, wisdom, power, and then imagination. That's how we manage that. So we utilize our powers with imagination, so we're not creating chaos, so we're not going on that roller coaster ride. You know, the Weasley twins, sometimes their little experiments didn't go so well. They did goof around a lot. And you know what? Not everything always goes so well for us. But we just pick ourselves up and we get back to it. That's what we do. The Weasley twins, when they got really serious, when they got focused with intention, like their last day at Hogwarts with intention, they wreaked havoc at Hogwarts. They caused complete, total, utter chaos, but they did it with intention. And it ended up being part of the rebuilding of Hogwarts, right? Getting things back into order. The Weasley twins, with imagination, they shook everything up so things could go back into order. They were also very flexible with imagination. We want to be flexible. Like the Weasley twins, Fred and George, they could change what they were doing in the middle of what they were doing. They didn't get caught up in how something had to look. I don't know if you've ever done this, but on occasion I thought about, well, this is what I want to create, and it has to look just like this, and it has to go exactly this way. A, B, and C exactly have to happen. And if it doesn't work out that way, it's all wrong and I'll fall apart. Okay? That's not being flexible, because we cannot control our environment. We can only control our response to our environment. So sometimes we have to make little adjustments along the way, and our imagination helps us. It helps us to make those little adjustments. We're always moving. I mean, our imagination, we create a target. That's our happy outcome. But you know what? That target's always a moving target. That target's always a moving target. And so imagination helps us to keep steering toward that target. Albert Einstein said, imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. Our experience of life unfolds through us based on our thoughts and our feelings and our convictions, our beliefs. With faith, we head in one direction. But without faith, we head in another direction that's full of fear. With strength, we stand in faith, so we keep going in the direction of faith. Without strength, our faith might falter and we end up going back toward fear. Love, wisdom, and power, those help us to make those conscious choices to keep bringing greater joy into our lives and to make choices that allow us to serve in ways that fulfill us. And with strength and faith, we're heading in the right direction. So we go in a different direction when we utilize the 12 powers. Now, with imagination, that's where we create our life. That's where we conceptualize it. That's where we paint the walls, right? All in our imagination. In our imagination, that's where we see ourselves creating heaven on earth. We see ourselves creating heaven on earth first in our own life, in our family, in our little tribe, right? And we commit to creating that in our lives. And then with faith, strength, love, wisdom, power, they make sure we get there. We imagine it, we build it. Faith, strength, love, wisdom, power, make sure we get there. And that is how we create heaven on earth. So until next time, remember, you are the activity of spirit in a body. You are the heart and the hands of spirit in this world. You are soul designed to do all of this stuff. Your soul designed for growth and goodness. And everything you do, you are blessed. And so it is. Thank you so much.